Welcome to the Chrisman Commentary, Daily Mortgage News Podcast. I'm your host, Robbie Chrisman. Topics on today's episode include more thoughts over the labor market, my interview with MBA Chairman Laura Escobar on her travels around the nation and what she's learned about herself, mentoring others, and more. What's going on with investor sentiment with all these conflicting narratives out there? Thanks to today's podcast sponsor, Total Expert, the purpose-built customer engagement platform trusted by hundreds of modern financial institutions. Total Expert turns customer data into actionable insights that help lenders engage and guide consumers through complex financial decisions. By fusing digital touchpoints and human interactions, Total Expert humanizes the customer journey to create better financial outcomes, build deeper relationships, and win customers for life. Visit TotalExpert.com to learn more. An economist's left leg is on fire and his right leg is frozen. So, he says, on average, I'm perfectly fine. For those out here continuing to scratch your head about the Bureau of Labor Statistics, non-farm payroll, it can be confusing to understand how numbers are calculated, revised, and can't, or maybe can, who knows, be manipulated. Meanwhile, how's your renovation offering? The median age of owner-occupied homes is 43 years old, according to the latest data from the 2022 American Community Survey done 3 years ago. U.S. owner-occupied housing stock is aging rapidly, especially after the Great Recession, as residential construction continues to fall behind in the numbers of new homes built. New home construction faces headwinds such as rising material costs, labor shortage, and elevated interest rates nowadays. The week opened with the bond markets holding on to most of Friday's bullish momentum. That's largely due to weak payroll, solid demand for U.S. debt, and the arbitrary trade deadline in the rearview. While July's employment report alone might not warrant a cut, downward revisions to May and June suggest a clear softening trend. This shift, combined with uncertainty over how tariff-related inflation and economic slowdown will balance out, has pushed the market to refocus on growth risks over inflation risks, especially with consumer spending slowing and the labor market appearing more fragile than previously understood. Investors are increasingly questioning how restrictive current policy remains. Accordingly, debate is intensifying over whether the Federal Reserve will look past tariff-driven inflation and instead focus on weakening labor market conditions and supporting consumer activity. We're seeing both labor supply and labor demand decline. A rate cut in September appears likely, currently priced in at a 90+% chance, barring an inflation surprise, as sustained labor softness could outweigh lingering price concerns and further equity market volatility may increase pressure on the Fed to move decisively. Political developments, and I'm talking about the resignation of Fed Governor Adriana Kugler and firing of the BLS chief, have stirred concerns about growing influence over economic policy and data integrity, though markets have largely taken these in stride. For today's interview, I want to welcome to the show MBA Chairman Laura Escobar to talk about her travels around the nation, mentorship, and public speaking. She's 2025 chair of the Mortgage Bankers Association and has been in the industry nearly 40 years, holding leadership positions with both bank-owned and independent mortgage companies, overseeing all aspects of mortgage banking. She's served as president of Lennar Mortgage, the mortgage lending subsidiary of Lennar Corporation, since 2018, leading a team of more than 1,100 associates and 54 locations across 26 states. She's passionate about paying it forward and is an advocate for women and minorities, a proud supporter of Empower, MBA promoting opportunities for women to extend their reach, the largest networking organization for women in real estate finance. So we're speaking here at Michigan Mortgage Lenders Association's annual conference in Frankenmuth, Michigan, obviously. And you've been on the road. I don't even know if you know where you're going next. What is your favorite airline? And I will add, how concerned are you with status? Maybe you don't need to be concerned because you've achieved all the status possible now, but I'd say American because you're in Florida. Yeah.
Are fabulous. Those are great questions. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I am an American junkie, American Airlines, as a result of being Miami based, and they're there. I am a concierge key, so I had status that gained status without asking for it. It's just by mere travel. And yes, to your point, I'm glad you told me we're in Michigan because I need to be reminded daily of where I am. So the travel schedule is beyond crazy. But today I travel to Michigan through Delta. What a difference. So I was introduced to another airline that really tickled my fancy. So I don't know, Robbie, I may be changing from American.
I know I'm a big Delta fan as well. I think it varies. Yeah. Certain airlines like United, you might not like it, but then once you get status, you really like it sort of thing. You know, there's different perks there. I've seen you at a couple conferences now. Maybe my favorite of the year was MBA advocacy in DC. And I'll keep this question kind of real, but I want to ask about why people should go. And I would say the realness of the question would be, yeah, I met with representatives, senators, or at least their staff from my home state of Nevada. And they say, yes, housing's a bipartisan issue. We want yes on housing. Yes, yes, yes. And then nothing really gets done. So it can be kind of frustrating. But the conference itself, amazing speakers. You mentioned Secretary of HUD, Scott Turner, Elizabeth Warren was there. Why go to advocacy?
Oh my gosh. One of the things that I have been saying from sea to shining sea is how our country demanded housing be first and foremost. As a result of that, I completely agree with you. It's great visiting, it's great, but then whatever happens to it, it is now finally moving, Robbie. It is going in the direction we want it to go in. But now we need to be there. We need to be in front of our local government and have our voices heard. Because for the first time, I really agree with you on this one. I think that for the first time, our voices are being heard. So you have to attend. You can't sit on the sidelines and have all these opinions and share, and everybody in the back of the room crying. Instead, get out there and yell and scream alongside me. And let's get housing right back on track where we need it to be.
Voices are being heard out there. And a big example of that was the recent passage of the trigger lead bill, which is a huge accomplishment. The trigger lead legislation was obviously a huge legislative victory for MBA. It took years of work. It showed just how hard it is to get something finally across the finish line, even if you want that bipartisan, or even if you have that bipartisan support. What should people listening to this podcast or people associated with MBA or people at IMBs know about the passage of the bill?
Well, first and foremost, it's a huge win. It's a huge win, not just for MBA. It's a huge win for every single constituent, every single American. Can you imagine trying to refinance or purchase your home and getting hundreds and hundreds of texts or emails trying to get your business? And forget that it's doing it to us, that we're taking from each other. The fact is that the end user, the borrower, was the one that was getting hit with all of this. So this is not just a huge win for MBA. It's a huge win for all of us. And once again, yes, MBA had to be at the forefront, and we had to have our voices heard, and we had to be going back every week on behalf of our members. And that's one of the things that's most important, Robbie, is MBA is relentless when it comes to representing.
I also like that the bill gave companies that a consumer might be affiliated with already to have an opportunity to see that they have pulled credit. So I think that was a neat little nuance to the bill that I liked. Let's get a little lighthearted here for the last two. You've been chairwoman for the last 10 months. What have you learned about our industry? That was, my dad said, ask her what she's learned about the industry. I want to know what you've learned about public speaking. I've seen you speak at so many places. You have to have learned a couple of things about that too. But first off, the industry, second off, public speaking.
Well, industry-wise, I have learned that we have a great deal of respect. And I said this, and I say this often, because I did not realize what level of respect and admiration MBA has in DC, and what level of interest, if you will. So that's one of the things that I have learned in the industry is, first and foremost, politicians are people just like you and I. And we have to be able to speak our mind. We have this sense of holding back and, oh, it's the governor. Oh, it's the congressman. No, these are people just like you and I that work for us. And that's really what I've learned, is that I have got to lean on them as they are employees of the American people. And then publicly, you said
public speaking, yes.
Gosh,
I love the little interjections you throw in at the end. It's like your comic clips that everybody
I can't
chuckles
help
at.
it. In public speaking, when it gets too monotonous or boring, I can't help it. I have to put my opinion in. But more importantly is that I found my voice. MBA helped me find my voice publicly, where I would always, in the beginning, if you saw any of my public speaking, I was very restricted to whatever it was that MBA told me to say. And I was terrified to share my opinion. And now I just interject and share who I am. It taught me, public speaking has taught me in this last 10 months, be yourself. People appreciate you for who you are, more importantly than the material.
I know you're also big on mentorship and some of these women's groups in the industry. And I've heard about the cool things you're doing there. Just kind of why it's so important to give back to the next generation, and then how we can uplift future leaders.
Well, first and foremost, I'm really, really hard on mentees. I don't mentor just anybody because I'm really hard. I demand that if this is what you're going to do and this is what you want, you've got to move forward. I'm not your counselor. I'm not your therapist. I'm your mentor. So I don't know that a lot of people come to me for mentoring after 2 or 3 sessions, but on women, it's so important. It is so important. We have a lot to say and we hold ourselves back. I suffered with the imposter syndrome for so long, and every now and then it rears its ugly head. So it is important that we lean on each other and that we continually challenge each other to move forward instead of that proverbial standing behind, and I won't say the man, but standing behind our own fears. So it's real important to me.
Yeah. And I can empathize on the imposter syndrome. I'm the son of somebody a lot of people know in the industry. And so it kind of drives you that much harder to really know your craft and hone it so that you don't feel like you're a phony in a lot of ways. Fun question for you at the end. It seems like it's been such a sprint here these last 10 months, like I mentioned. What is Laura Escobar going to focus on after her chair role? And we can't say focus on sleep. I know you want sleep, but what's next for you focus wise?
On the contrary, I think that my wings now, I'm going to spread them. Instead of having to do specific visits at specific dates to different local chapters, now I can be me and go out and help on the affordable space and go out and lean on the fact that I was chair and see what I can get accomplished. I'm not done. I'm just beginning, Robbie.
Very cool. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it as well.
After we learned yesterday that factory orders dropped 4.8% in June, mainly due to a sharp decline in transportation equipment, today's economic calendar kicks off with international trade for June and will be followed by S&P Global Services PMI, ISM Services PMI for July, and Treasury activity that will be headlined by an auction of $58 billion of 3-year notes. We began the day with agency MBS prices slightly worse than yesterday's close. The 2-year yielding 3.70 and the 10-year yielding 4.21 after closing yesterday at 4.20%. Let's wrap up with a joke and some housekeeping. Researchers for the Massachusetts Turnpike Authority, or MTA, found over 200 dead crows near Greater Boston recently, and there was concern they may have died from avian flu. A bird pathologist examined the remains of all the crows and, to everyone's relief, confirmed the problem was definitely not avian flu. The cause of death appeared to be vehicular impacts. During the detailed analysis, it was noted that varying colors of paint appeared on the birds' beaks and claws. By analyzing these paint residues, it was determined that 98% of the crows had been killed by impact with trucks, while only 2% were killed by impact with a car. MTA then hired an ornithological behaviorist to determine if there was a cause for the disproportionate percentages of truck kills versus car kills. He very quickly concluded the cause. When crows eat roadkill, they always have a lookout crow in a nearby tree to warn of impending danger. They discovered that while all of the lookout crows could shout "caw," not a single one could shout "truck." It's a Boston joke. Caw. Pack your caw. Thanks again to Total Expert, the purpose-built customer engagement platform trusted by hundreds of modern financial institutions. Total Expert turns customer data into actionable insights to help lenders engage and guide consumers through complex financial decisions. To learn more, visit totalexpert.com.